Okay, Year 7, welcome to your tutorial on linking decimals, percentages, and fractions. And I included these little guys. They're all Labradors. They're the same thing. They're just three different varieties of the same thing. Now, some people might want a white Labrador in certain circumstances. Other people might want a black one. Other people might want a brown one. It just depends on the circumstance. So we're going to learn the way in which we can use decimals, percentages, and fractions in different circumstances. Let's begin. You need to write this down in your book. Percentages are related closely to fractions. Okay, we learned how decimals were related to percentages now. Decimals were related to fractions. Now we're going to learn how percentages fit in. Okay, a percentage is a fraction in which the denominator is 100. So percentage is Latin for out of 100. Percent. Okay, that means of 100%. Okay, now what I'm going to do for you is I've given you out 2 sheets. They were on conversions. Make sure you have them glued somewhere in your book because in a moment we are going to look at them. Okay, percentages are used in many different everyday situations. We use them in interest rates, in when we're talking about discounts, so you get a certain percent off, when we're looking at test results, and when we're looking at statistics. We use percentages in these circumstances rather than fractions or decimals because percentages are easy to compare. When we're looking at comparing things, we tend to use percentages because they're very easy to compare to different results. So if something goes up by 20% and something goes up by 15%, that's really easy to see straight away which one's the most. Okay, a little bit harder than maybe a fraction or a decimal. It's important to understand the relationships and connections between fractions, decimals, and percentages. So you need to appreciate them not as separate things as, okay, decimals are over there, okay, percentages are over there, and there's this other thing, fractions, that we're looking at. No. You need to understand that they are just 3 different ways or 3 different areas in mathematics that we can use to represent the same value, the same thing. Okay, so I can have a half of pizza, I can have a 50% of the pizza, or I can have 0.5 of the pizza. Obviously, I don't say that all the time because I use the different either a fraction, a decimal, or a percentage, the different means in different circumstances. So this is what we call a fraction wall chart. This is something that you already have glued in your book. You will notice that on the top I have my percentages, 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, and so on and so forth, okay? We assume here is 0 and we assume here is 100%, okay? That decimal conversion is right underneath, okay? That decimal conversion is right underneath. And I've also broken it down for you as well, further. So I have one hole that goes all the way along here. I might use that red colour actually. Let's go back to that red. This represents a whole, or 1, or 100%. This bit here represents a half. This bit says halves. I'm trying to represent a half. This represents half. Another way of understanding a half, if I look all the way at the top, is 50% or 0.5. This represents a third. Okay. If I go up, I will get a little bit between 30 and 40%. Oh, I did that on a bit of a dodgy angle actually. We'll just redo that one again. Redo that line? No, I can't. Okay, I'll just get rid of all of it. Okay. Now, that third one I go up, actually, I'm going up here. That's a bit of a dodgy line. Okay, but it was a little bit before that, okay? That's 1/3 or 0.33333 or 33.333%. Okay, obviously you can understand that for the rest. That's a quarter, I go up 25%. This one's a fifth, I go up 20% or 0.2. Okay, all the way down to a tenth. Now, a tenth is the same as 0.1 or 10%. Okay, so this is a really good visual way for you guys to appreciate the relationship between percentages, decimals, and fractions. I have percentages up the top, I have decimals underneath, and all of this down here, these are the fractions. Okay, and I've just coloured in a sixth. So if I know if I have, say for example, 1/4 and then another quarter, that's the same as writing 2/4, or I can simplify it to a half. And lo and behold, when I get to the end there, that is 50% or 0.5. This chart is meant to show you the relationships between decimals, percentages, and fractions. So if you have it in your book, excellent. Okay, another one. This is the other chart you have in your book. These are the decimals, fractions, and percentages you need to know off by heart. These are the ones that you shouldn't need to convert in your head. You just need to know them. All of these you need to know. So a half, most of you are pretty confident with at the moment. A half is 0.5 as a decimal or 50%. A quarter, some of you might be confident with. 1/4, 0.25 or 25%. The same as a fifth, 0.2, 20%. Okay, these ones you will be less confident with, I feel. I might be wrong, but I'm thinking a tenth, 0.1 and 10%. A third, 0.333 reoccurring, or 33 1/3%. And a 1/100th, 1/100, 0.01, because it's in hundredths, it's not in tens, or 1%. They're the ones that you're going to have to work on. You need to know all of them, but I've put in green the ones that I think you need to know all of them. Yeah, but like I put the one in green that I think you may be less confident with. Obviously, you need to know a whole. You need to know a whole's 100%. One is a decimal or one is a fraction, okay? That one I think goes without saying. But you need to know all of these in this table off by heart. Okay, so maybe it might be idea to translate that table and put it up on our wall at home and just work on remembering those ones, guys. Okay, now it says convert the following fractions to decimals and percentages. So convert the following fractions to decimals and percentages. Okay, let's have a look at this. It says 17 tenths. Ooh, I don't know what 17 tenths is, but I do know what 1/10 is, okay? So I represented 1/10. Let's start with that. I do know that one. Another way I can represent this is actually with 10 on 100. 10 on 100 is an equivalent fraction of 1 on 10. Okay, so I can write it as 10 over 1/10, or I can write it as 10 over 100. Now that's going to make it really easy when I go to draw it as a percentage. Percentage means out of 100, and if I've got 10 out of 100, I have 10%. Pretty straightforward. What's that as a decimal? Okay, well I've got 0 in my units. Sorry, I've got 0 in my 10, got 0 hundredths, and then one more place value along, I've got 1. Okay, so the way I represent that is 0.10. Now that's 1/10. How many tenths did I need? I needed 17 tenths, okay? Now, what you need to memorize, what you need to know is these ones here. You need to know that 10% is the same as saying 1/10, it's the same as saying 10 over 100, 0.10 or 10%. You need to know that off by heart. Why do you need to know that off by heart? Is because when you come around to, say, writing 17 over 100, you need to be able to go, that's 1/10, times that by 17, I will get 1.7. Soon as I get 1.7, that's the same as saying 170 over 100. I'm going to have more than 100%. I'm actually going to have 170%. Now, how did I get that? I know that my numerator is bigger than my denominator, so I'm at least going to have one whole. I'm going to have 1 and 70 over 100. So with that 1, I know I have more than 100%. Now, what the hell? When would I ever have a circumstance where I'd use more than 100%? I can't have more than 100% of a pizza. I can't have more than 100% of a bottle of soft drink. But what I can have more than 100% of comes a lot of the time in costs of items. Say, for example, I decided that I had a greengrocer little stall set up the front of my house. I bought strawberries from a farmer. I bought them for $1 off him. And then when I sold them to everyone else, I needed to make a bit of money. So I bought them as $1 from him. And then I sold them for $1.70. Now the selling price, based on the original, is 170% of the original cost, because I put 70 cents on the top. So that new price represents 170% of the original cost, because I'd taken the dollar in order to pay back the farmer, plus I added more. So I added 170%. They're the kind of circumstances where you look at percentages that are more than 100. Let's have a look at converting another example. Now, it's got 9 quarters. 9 quarters. That's a bit weird. I don't know what 9 quarters is. I know one of my memorized ones is 1/4. And I know from memorizing it, because these are the ones Miss said I had to know, okay, this is the number fact I needed to know. 1/4 is the same as 25 over 100. If I have 1/4, I have 25 over 100. As soon as I get it like that, percent means out of 100. So if I have 25 over 100, becomes 25%. Okay, how do I represent that? Well, if I look here, that 5 is in my hundredths place value, so that 5 is here, and then the 2's in the place value after it, so my decimal becomes 0.25. I need to know this. I need to memorize that 1/4 is the same as 25 over 100, is the same as 25%, or 0.25. I must know that. That's something I need to remember. So if I know that 25 over 100 or 1/4 is the same as 0.25 or 25%, that's 1/4. How much would 9 be? So if I have 0.25, that's 1/4. What would 9 be? Multiplied by 9. 9/4 becomes 2.25. Oh. So if it's 2.25, that means I've got a whole and some. So I'm going to have more than 100%. I'm going to have 225%, because I've got a whole there. Then I've got the 25 after the decimal place, so those two there. Okay, 225% is what that one converts into. So I work out 1/4, and then in order to get 9/4, okay, or 9 on 4, I then multiply 1/4 by 9. So I knew it, I have a known fact, and I use that in order to work it out. Last example, 2/3, okay? I don't know what 2/3 is. I remember from my known fact that 1/3 is the same as 0.333, and that keeps on going. Or I can represent that as 33 1/3%. That's the other way I can represent it. 33 1/3. Now, it's 1/3 because the third comes from my original fraction. So 33 1/3. That's my known facts. I know that. I absolutely memorize that. I know it. What I don't know, if that's 1/3, what's 2/3? So 0.333 reoccurring is 1/3. What's 2/3 going to be? Could I work that out? 1/3 is that 2/3? Oh, hold on. 2/3 is just double. So therefore, 2/3 is just the same as writing 0.666, or this time 66. Now it was 1/3 before. It's 2/3 of a percent. That's another way I can write it. So I use my known facts and manipulate them so I can find out trickier number ones. And that's it, guys. That is our first introduction to converting fractions to decimals and percentages.